Tonight, let's talk about the allure of the blank space on an old map. It's easy to look back with romance, to see the age of discovery as a heroic time of brave men sailing into the unknown to uncover the world's secrets. We imagine them as enlighteners, as scientists, as pioneers. But history is rarely so clean. The act of filling in a map is also an act of imposition, of drawing lines that erase what was there before. The arrogance of civilization has always been its belief that an empty space on its own parchment means an empty space in the world. As you get comfortable, finding that perfect spot to rest your head, I'd like to invite you to join our community of history lovers by subscribing to the channel. It helps us continue to journey into these forgotten corners of the past together. And a question for you to drift off with: when does the noble quest for knowledge become a destructive quest for control? There's no right answer, just something to hold in your thoughts as our story begins. Now, take a slow, deep breath. Feel the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders. Let the sounds of your room fade into a gentle hum. Allow your muscles to relax from your jaw to your shoulders, down your back and into your legs. With each breath out, you are letting go, sinking deeper into a state of comfortable rest. You are safe. You are drifting. And you are ready to travel back through time, not as an observer, but as a participant. The story is not about to be told to you. It is about to happen to you. Congratulations. You are Mateo de la Vega, and the year is 1560. You have just woken up in the Spanish port of Seville, and you believe, with every fiber of your being, that you are about to help bring light to the world. The first thing that greets you is not sight, but smell. It's a challenge to your modern sensibilities, an assault on the sterile expectations of your time. This is not the clean, salty tang of a seaside resort. This is the truth of a 16th century port, the busiest gateway to the New World. It's a pungent, inescapable perfume of life and decay, woven together so tightly you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. There is the sharp smell of hot tar being used to caulk the hulls of towering carracks and galleons, a scent that clings to the back of your throat. Underneath it, the foundational smell of the harbor low tide, rotting fish and brine-soaked wood. Add to that the smells of humanity, thousands of souls pressed together, unwashed bodies, sweat, cheap wine, and cooking fires burning with charcoal and olive oil. And through it all, a ghost of something exotic drifts on the breeze. The dust of spices from the east, the sweetness of tobacco from the Americas, the heavy scent of cured leather. You draw it all in, this chaotic breath of empire, and to you, it smells not of filth, but of promise. You rise from your simple rope bed in a modest boarding house, the floorboards cold and rough against the soles of your feet. Every muscle in your body feels coiled with a nervous energy, an eagerness that has robbed you of a truly deep sleep for weeks. You are Mateo de la Vega, a cartographer, but you see yourself as so much more. You are a man of science, of order, an artist of the empirical truth. In an age of superstition and brutal conquest, you believe your craft is a higher calling. To map something is to understand it. To understand it is to elevate it from the realm of chaos into the world of human reason. You are not a soldier. You are an enlightener. Your tools, your sacred implements, are laid out on the small wooden table by the window. You run your fingers over them with a reverence a priest reserves for his chalice. There is the cool, comforting weight of the brass astrolabe, its interlocking rings a perfect model of God's ordered cosmos. With it, you can capture the stars, fix your position on an unforgiving sea, and draw a line of certainty across the globe. There's your compass, its needle trembling with a mysterious but reliable attraction to the north. And then there is the parchment, creamy, smooth, and terrifyingly blank. Sheets of it are rolled and stored in a hardened leather tube, protected from the damp sea air that threatens to warp and ruin everything. Your inks are in small, stoppered glass jars, black from oak galls for the solid lines of coast and river, red from crushed insects for the names of settlements, and even a precious blue from ground lapis lazuli, reserved for the vastness of the ocean itself. These are not mere tools, they are extensions of your mind, the instruments by which you will impose rational, beautiful order on a savage, formless world. Also you believe. Your stomach growls, a reminder that your mind may be full of celestial ambition, but your body is still tied to the earth. Breakfast is not a pleasant affair. It's a piece of hard, stale bread and a chunk of salty cheese, washed down with watered wine that is already beginning to taste of vinegar. Food in your time is about one thing: sustenance. The bread is hard because it has to last for months on a sea voyage, baked to a rock-like consistency to resist mold. The cheese is caked in salt for the same reason. This is the taste of preservation, not pleasure. But you barely notice. Your thoughts are elsewhere, on the meeting you will have this morning, the meeting that will finalize your place in history. You dress for the occasion. Your clothes are practical, but of good quality, a sign of your professional standing. A simple linen shirt, woolen breeches, thick stockings, and sturdy leather shoes. The wool is scratchy against your skin, a constant, low-level irritation you've long since learned to ignore. Because there is no central heating, no concept of insulated walls, wool is essential for warmth, even on a mild day. It holds heat when wet, and is incredibly durable. It is the fabric of a world without creature comforts, a world where your daily existence is a constant, low-grade battle against the elements. You step out into the street, and the sensory onslaught you smelled from your window becomes a full-bodied reality. The noise is a cacophony of a dozen languages. You hear the harsh guttural commands of Basque sailors, the fluid cadence of Genoese merchants, the clipped tones of German bankers, and the dominant, proud Castilian of soldiers and royal officials. Carts drawn by tired-looking donkeys rattle over the cobblestones, their wooden wheels screeching in protest. Chickens and stray dogs dart underfoot. A blacksmith's hammer rings out in a steady, percussive rhythm. This is the heart of a global empire, a roaring furnace of commerce, faith, and ambition. And it is all directed westward, across the great ocean sea, toward the promise of the new world. Your destination is a warehouse office near the docks, leased by the expedition's benefactor. The air inside is cooler, smelling of dry paper and sealing wax. And there he sits behind a massive oak desk laden with maps and ledgers. Captain de Vargas. He is not a large man, but he seems to fill the entire room with his presence. He is lean and hard, his face tanned to the color of old leather by years under a punishing sun. His beard is neatly trimmed, and his eyes, a startlingly pale gray, seem to look right through you, assessing your worth, your soul, your utility to his mission. They call him a hierro. The iron, and you can see why. There is nothing soft or yielding about him. He rises as you enter, and his smile is a brilliant, disarming flash of white teeth. It is a charismatic smile, the kind that makes men want to follow him into the mouth of hell itself. Master de la Vega, he says, his voice a low, gravelly baritone. The man who will give shape to our glorious enterprise. He gestures for you to sit. You feel a thrill run through you, a mixture of awe and intimidation. You have heard the stories of this man, a veteran of the Italian wars, a ruthless commander in the endless conflicts against the Moors, a man whose piety is said to be as sharp and unbending as his Toledo steel sword. De Vargas doesn't waste time with small talk. He unrolls a large chart on his desk. It's a crude map of the known coastline of the southern continent, a fringe of civilization clinging to a vast, green emptiness labeled simply terra incognita. The uncounted land. They bring me gold from this place, he says, tapping a finger on a marked settlement. They bring me silver. But they are like children digging in the sand at the edge of an immense ocean. They scratch the surface. His eyes find yours, and they burn with a fire that is more than mere greed. It is the fire of the fanatic, the true believer. The rumors, Mateo, the legends, they speak of a kingdom in the interior. A city of gold, ruled by a gilded king. They call it El Dorado. You nod, of course. You have heard the tales, as has every man in Seville. They are the fevered dreams of sailors and soldiers, fantasies spun to justify the risks of the journey. But as de Vargas speaks, it sounds like something more. My contemporaries see only the gold. He continues, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But I see the hand of God. This savage wilderness. He sweeps his hand over the great green blankness on your map. It is a void, an unwritten page in the history of Christendom. It is a kingdom of heathens and devils, living in ignorance of the one true faith. To leave it untouched is a sin. To claim it, to bring the light of Christ and the order of Spain into its dark heart, that is a divine mandate. The gold is merely proof of God's favor, a reward for our holy work. You listen, utterly captivated. This is not the language of a common brute or a greedy treasure hunter. This is the language of destiny. His vision aligns perfectly with your own, two sides of the same glorious coin. He will conquer with the sword of faith. You will document with the pen of reason. Together you will transform that monstrous, unknown wilderness into a new province of the Spanish Empire, a new parish for the Catholic Church. Your role is clear. You are to be the expedition's chief cartographer. You will march with him, charting the rivers, measuring the mountains, fixing the positions of new settlements. You will draw the lines that will define this new world. A profound sense of purpose fills you, so powerful it feels like a physical warmth spreading through your chest. The doubts you might have harbored about the brutality of the conquests melt away in the heat of his conviction. You are not a party to pillage and slaughter. You are an agent of enlightenment. This is your chance to etch your name not just on a map, but onto the annals of history. I will serve Spain and God with all my skill, Captain. You say, your own voice sounding more resolute than you expected. De Vargas's iron gaze softens for a moment. He claps a heavy hand on your shoulder. I know you will, Master de la Vega. I know you will. Our names will be remembered together. The next few weeks are a blur of preparations. You are aboard the flagship of the small fleet, the Santissima Causa, the most holy cause. The name itself is a declaration of intent. The ship is a revelation to you. From the docks, it looked like a majestic floating castle. Up close, and now living within it, you understand its true nature. It is a cramped, functional wooden world designed to carry the maximum amount of men and supplies with the minimum amount of comfort. Your living quarters are a tiny space you share with the ship's priest, a thin, nervous man named Father Ignacio. It's barely large enough for 2 small cots and a single sea chest for your belongings. The air is always stale, thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, bilge water, and the lingering scent of the animal pens on the deck above. The constant creaking and groaning of the ship's timbers becomes the soundtrack to your life, a wooden beast sighing and groaning as it moves through the water. Privacy is a concept that simply doesn't exist. You learn to sleep through the snores of the priest, the shouts of the watch on deck, and the scurrying of rats in the darkness. But you have your corner, your sanctuary. You've secured your leather tube of parchment and your instrument box beneath your cot, wedging it tightly to protect it from the ship's relentless rocking. Your life's work and the mission's future is contained in that small space. As the days turn into weeks and the coast of Spain recedes into memory, the reality of an ocean voyage sets in. The world shrinks to the confines of the ship, a moving piece of Spain surrounded by an endless, indifferent sea of blue. Your diet worsens. The hard bread grows weevils. The salted meat becomes so tough it's almost inedible, and the water in the barrels grows slick with green algae. Scurvy has not yet been scientifically understood, and you watch men's gums begin to bleed, their energy fading without understanding the simple dietary cause. You are spared the worst of it, your slightly higher status affording you a small ration of wine and occasionally a preserved piece of fruit, but you feel the drain of the monotonous, nutrient-poor diet. You feel yourself growing thinner, harder, but your spirit remains undimmed. Your conviction is bolstered by the very order of the ship. You marvel at the skill of the sailors, who seem to speak another language of ropes, sails, and knots. You see the pilot navigate by the sun and stars, using instruments much like your own. The ship itself feels like a triumph of human will over the formless chaos of the ocean. It sails a straight line. It follows a predetermined course. It is an island of reason on a sea of turmoil. Because you are living in this highly structured, man-made environment, your belief that any wilderness can be tamed by Spanish ingenuity and discipline is reinforced with every passing nautical mile. And then there is de Vargas. Every evening, as the sun bleeds across the western horizon, he gathers the men on the main deck. Soldiers, sailors, craftsmen, and priests all stand before him, and he speaks. His voice, honed by years of command, easily cuts through the whistle of the wind in the rigging. He doesn't shout. He sermonizes. He speaks of their destiny, of the glory that awaits them. He paints pictures of them as new apostles, bringing light to the pagans. He promises them riches not just for their pockets, but for their immortal souls. Men! His voice booms, echoing off the mainsail. You are not merely soldiers of Spain! You are the soldiers of Christ! Every river we cross, every league we march, we are stamping out the dominion of Satan and expanding the kingdom of heaven on earth. The fear you feel is a test. The hardship you endure is a penance. And the victory we will achieve will be eternal. You stand among the crew, your heart swelling with a powerful mix of patriotic and intellectual pride. The fire in his eyes seems to reflect the setting sun. The men are enraptured. Their own fears, their own base desires for gold and land are elevated by his words into something noble, something holy. He gives their suffering a purpose beyond greed. You, too, are moved. While they dream of gold, you dream of the perfection of your maps. You see your own quest for knowledge as the intellectual counterpart to his spiritual crusade. The long voyage across the Atlantic becomes a period of calm incubation for your ideals. The sea is predictable. Your instruments are true. The ship is a bastion of European order. You spend your days practicing with your sextant, charting your progress, and making notes in your journal. You fill your mind with the theories of Ptolemy and the wisdom of the ancient navigators. You are filled with a zealous optimism, an unshakable faith in your own skills and in the righteousness of your mission. You are a man of logic, standing on the precipice of a great mystery, and you are absolutely certain that you have the tools to solve it. The horizon is a clean, sharp line, and you have no doubt that you can conquer it, measure it, and commit it to parchment. You are eager to arrive, to get to work, to begin the great and holy task of taming the blank spaces on the map. You have no idea what is truly waiting for you, where the rivers run green and the maps end. The zealous optimism of the Atlantic crossing still clings to you like the scent of salt spray on a fine wool coat. For weeks, the world had been an orderly demonstration of God's grand design, a blue and white canvas upon which you plotted your perfect, unwavering lines. Captain de Vargas's speeches echoed the conviction in your own heart that with faith, Spanish steel, and the clarifying power of reason, you could bring measure and meaning to any patch of darkness on the globe. You felt yourself an apostle of a new age, your tools. The astrolabe, the compass, the clean parchment, instruments of enlightenment. But that was the world of the open ocean. Now, as your flotilla of smaller, cruder vessels leaves the flagship behind and pushes past the great mouth of the river, that world of clean lines and clear horizons dissolves, not in an instant, but like a salt sculpture left out in a ceaseless, tropical rain. The first assault is not on your body but on your senses. The air changes. You've known the dampness of a Spanish harbor on a foggy morning, but this is something else entirely. It is not air you breathe, but air you wear. It is a physical weight, a hot, wet blanket saturated with the smells of things you have never known, the sweet, cloying perfume of rot from a million fallen leaves, the sharp, green tang of crushed vegetation, the damp, earthy musk of mud that has not seen the sun for 1,000 years. It coats your skin in a perpetual sheen of moisture that is not quite sweat, because it offers no relief. Because, in this humidity, nothing can evaporate. The cooling mechanism of your own body, a perfect design you had always taken for granted, has been rendered useless. Your fine European clothes, once a mark of your station, are now a suffocating prison of damp wool, chafing your skin raw with every movement. The sound, too, is a physical presence. On the open sea, the sounds were predictable: the wind in the rigging, the creak of timber, the crash of waves. Here, you are plunged into a symphony of the unseen. It is a constant, suffocating wall of noise that rises from the impenetrable green walls on either side of the river. The screech of birds you cannot name, the guttural roar of a creature hidden in the canopy, the incessant, maddening thrum of millions of insects. A high, vibrating hum that gets inside your skull and never leaves, even in the dead of night. Your mind, trained to identify, to categorize, to name, finds nothing to hold on to. It is chaos. It is the sound of a world that does not know you, does not care for you, and has been carrying on its deafening conversation long before your ships ever existed. You try to maintain your discipline, your purpose. Each day, you set up your instruments in the shallow draft boat, fighting the gentle but relentless rocking. You are Mateo de la Vega, royal cartographer. This is your duty. You lay your precious parchment on a small, unsteady writing desk, anchoring it with smooth river stones. You dip your quill and you try to draw the riverbank. But how do you draw this? The shoreline is not a clean, simple line as it appears on the maps of Europe. It is a tangled, shifting mess of roots, mud, and grasping vines. The jungle does not simply sit beside the river. It leans over it, claws at it, drops its leaves and branches into it, constantly redefining the boundary between water and land. Your attempts to capture it with a single, elegant stroke of ink feel like a profound lie. You stare at the frustrating, messy sketch, a pathetic mockery of the overwhelming reality before you. The straight, confident lines you practiced in Seville seem to belong to another man, from another lifetime. Then comes the attack on your reason. It happens on an overcast afternoon, the sky a uniform, pearlescent gray behind the suffocating ceiling of leaves. The river has widened and the current is slow. A good time, you think, to take a proper bearing, to fix your position with the certainty of science. You pull out your compass, a beautiful instrument of polished brass, its needle balanced on a fine, sharp pin. In Spain, on the open sea, it was your most trusted friend, a direct connection to the fundamental, God-given order of the world. It always pointed north. It always told the truth. You lay it flat on the lid of a crate. The needle swings and keeps swinging. It makes a slow, lazy circle, then another. It quivers, hesitates, and points west for a moment, then jerks southeast. It seems to tremble, as if in agonized confusion. You pick it up, shake it gently, and set it down again. The same result. A cold knot forms in your stomach. This isn't possible. The laws of nature are immutable. You call over one of the junior officers. He checks his own compass. His needle, too, spins like a drunken dancer. The men nearby fall silent, watching. Whispers begin to spread through the boat. Words like witchcraft, deviltry, cursed earth. You, a man of science, try to find a logical explanation. Is it the boat? No. You have no significant iron aboard this small vessel. Is it a flaw in the instruments? Not two of them, made by different hands. Your mind, a fortress of logic and learning, is breached. For the first time, you are confronted with a terrifying possibility that you are in a place where the fundamental rules of your world no longer apply. That night, you wait for the stars. The sky is your ultimate map, the one celestial chart that has guided mariners and philosophers for millennia. It is constant, eternal, and true. All you need is a break in the canopy, a glimpse of Polaris or the Southern Cross, to fix your place in the universe once more. You stare upwards from the center of the boat, craning your neck until it aches. But you see nothing. The canopy is absolute. It is a dense, black ceiling woven from leaves and vines, blotting out the heavens entirely. You have heard of being lost at sea, but this is a new and more terrifying state. You are lost from the sky. You are adrift in a world without a north, and without a God to look down upon you. The feeling of zealous optimism you carried from Spain is now a distant memory. In its place, a single seed of doubt has been planted in the fertile soil of your fear, and in this oppressive heat and damp, you can almost feel it beginning to germinate. Your stomach growls, reminding you of another, more primal concern, the food. On the flagship you ate salted beef, hardtack biscuits, and drank wine, a predictable if monotonous diet. Here, the supplies are dwindling, and you are forced to supplement them with what you can find. The men fish from the river, pulling out strange, armored creatures with fleshy whiskers and dull, staring eyes. They hunt in the suffocating jungle, bringing back monkeys and brightly colored birds whose meat is stringy and tastes of musk. The bread you have left is no longer hardtack, it's a living ecosystem of weevils and mold. Because nothing dry stays dry here. The humidity seeps into everything, turning crisp biscuit into soft, crawling bread, and rusting steel swords inside their scabbards. You try to eat what the men eat, to show solidarity, but your stomach rebels. You are used to the cultivated tastes of Europe, to bread made from wheat and wine from grapes. This food is a reminder that you are severing your last ties to that world. You watch a grizzled soldier bite into a large, grub-like beetle, roasted over the fire. He eats it with a grim satisfaction. "Tastes like nuts, sir," he says, offering you one. You politely decline. Your body yearns for the familiar, for the comforting order of a proper meal. You might think you understand hunger, but you are beginning to realize that the hunger for food is eclipsed by the hunger for normalcy. And then the fevers begin. It starts with a single soldier named Rodrigo, a young man from Andalusia with a quick smile and a strong back. One day, he complains of a headache. The next, he is shivering violently, wrapped in every blanket he owns despite the suffocating heat. The ship's surgeon, a man whose medical knowledge is limited to bleeding and prayer, examines him with a worried frown. He opens a vein in Rodrigo's arm, letting the dark, sluggish blood run into a bowl. The theory is that this will balance the humors, but you see it for what it is, a desperate, useless ritual. Rodrigo does not get better. The shivering gives way to a raging fire within him. He sweats so profusely that his cot is soaked through. Yet he cries out that he is freezing. His mind goes. He calls out for his mother, babbles about the olive groves of his home, his eyes wide with a terror you cannot see. You sit with him for a time, wiping his brow with a damp cloth. The heat radiating from his skin is like that of a furnace. You feel utterly powerless. Your maps, your measurements, your knowledge of latitude and longitude, they are useless against this invisible enemy. The surgeon says it is the foul air rising from the swamps, miasma, but you know he is simply giving a name to his own ignorance. Because the real killer is microscopic, carried in the needle, like proboscis of a tiny mosquito that drinks the blood of your men and leaves behind a deadly parasite. But you don't know this. To you, it is simply the jungle, the air, the water, the very substance of this world, that is poisoning you. Rodrigo dies a few days later, his strong body reduced to a skeletal, twitching wreck. He is buried in a shallow grave on the riverbank, marked by a crude wooden cross that will be swallowed by vines within a month. He is the first, but not the last. Soon 3 more men are shivering. Then 5. The unbreakable discipline of Captain de Vargas's expedition begins to fray at the edges. Men grow sullen and fearful. They look at the jungle walls not as a challenge to be conquered, but as a living prison that is slowly, methodically killing them. Their faith, once a source of strength, curdles into superstition. They cross themselves at the snapping of a twig. They whisper that the souls of the dead are pulled from their bodies by the screeching things in the trees. The grand quest for El Dorado, for glory and God, has been reduced to a squalid, miserable struggle for basic survival. Your dream of bringing enlightenment has collided with the reality of just staying alive. It is during this time of growing despair that you see him. The flotilla has moored in a quiet lagoon to make repairs to a damaged boat. The air is still, the black water a perfect mirror of the oppressive green walls around you. You have separated yourself from the main group, walking a short way down the muddy bank, seeking a moment of solitude to collect your thoughts. You are trying to sketch a particularly strange flower, its petals the color of dried blood, when a flicker of movement across the water catches your eye. You look up. On the opposite bank, standing so still that he seems to have grown from the earth itself, is a man. He is naked but for a breechcloth, his skin the color of rich clay, his long hair as black as river mud. He holds no weapon. His posture is one of complete, effortless calm. He is simply watching you. There is no menace in his gaze, no curiosity, not even surprise. It is the gaze of a man looking at something utterly predictable, like the rising of the sun or the flow of the river. You freeze, your hand still holding the charcoal pencil. Your first thought is savage. It is the word you have been taught, the one Captain de Vargas uses with such righteous fury. But the word feels hollow, wrong. The man before you does not look savage. The true savages, you realize with a sickening jolt, are on your side of the river, loud, clumsy, sick and afraid, hacking at the jungle with their steel blades and fouling the air with their fear. This man is the opposite of all that. He is silent. He is still. He belongs here. Time seems to stop. The cacophony of the jungle fades into a low hum. It is just you and him, two worlds staring at each other across a narrow channel of black water. In his calm presence, you feel the full weight of your intrusion. You are not an explorer, you are an infection. Your straight lines, your perfect circles, your entire system of ordering the world feels like a child's game in the face of the ancient, silent wisdom in his eyes. He is a living judgment on your arrogance. He represents everything you cannot measure, cannot map, cannot comprehend. He holds your gaze for a long moment longer, then, without a sound, he turns. He does not run or retreat. He simply takes a step back and is gone. One moment he is there, a solid form of flesh and bone, and the next he is gone, reclaimed by the wall of green as if he were never there at all. You are left staring at the empty space where he stood, your heart pounding in your chest. The unease that had been slowly growing within you has now blossomed into a profound and unsettling certainty. You are not discovering a new world. You are trespassing in an old one, a world with its own rules, its own language, and its own silent, watchful guardians. And you are not welcome here. The creeping sense of unease that first took root at the river's mouth has now grown into a suffocating vine wrapped around your heart. Weeks have passed since you last saw the silent elder, Kylan, yet his judging gaze haunts your waking moments and stalks the edges of your feverish dreams. The memory of your compass, spinning uselessly like a child's toy, has become a potent symbol for your entire endeavor. Your orderly, scientific world, once as reliable as the North Star, has been swallowed by a realm that scoffs at your instruments and your certainty. Now, with each labored step away from the wide, familiar waterway and into the tangled green heart of this continent, that unease solidifies into a quiet dread. You are no longer mapping a new world. You are trespassing in a very, very old one, and it is beginning to feel as though the jungle and the unreadable god that Captain de Vargas prays to are one and the same. The days bleed into one another, a monotonous cycle of misery measured not by the sun, which you rarely see, but by the aching of your bones. Your morning begins before the light, not with a gentle awakening, but with the clammy, suffocating grip of humidity. You push aside the thin, damp canvas of your hammock, and your bare feet touch mud that has never known the grace of being dry. The air itself is not air, not as you knew it in Seville. It's a thick, soupy medium, heavy with the smells of decay and ferocious life, a perfume of orchids and rot that clogs your throat and clings to your skin. You feel perpetually sticky, coated in a film of sweat and grime that no river bath can truly wash away. You look down at your hands, the hands of a cartographer. The nails are broken and caked with dirt, the skin cross, hatched with 1,000 tiny cuts from thorny vines and sliced by the razor-sharp edges of unfamiliar grasses. These were hands meant for the delicate dance of a quill pen on parchment, for the precise measurement of an astrolabe. Now they are the clumsy, battered tools of a laborer, and you feel how every muscle, from your shoulder to your wrist, screams in protest. This is the first lesson of the wild that you have truly learned. Survival is a full-body occupation. There is no room for the specialized gentleman here. To live is to work, constantly, from the moment you wake until you collapse into an exhausted, dream-plagued sleep. Breakfast is an exercise in willful ignorance. The hardtack, the tough flour, and water biscuits that are the staple of your diet, is no longer merely hard. You have to tap it sharply against a rock before you eat, not to break it, but to dislodge the weevils that have burrowed into its core. You try not to look too closely at the salted pork, which often shimmers with a faint iridescence in the dim light, its taste growing sharper, more acrid, with each passing week. You yearn, with an ache that is almost physical, for the simple taste of fresh bread, a wedge of sheep's cheese, or a single glass of tart Spanish wine. You think of the feasts you once took for granted, and your stomach clenches with a hunger that the meager, rotting rations can never satisfy. This is not the noble struggle of an explorer you read about in books. It is the grim, demoralizing reality of slow starvation in a world that is, paradoxically, bursting with life you do not understand. Then comes the march, the real labor. Captain de Vargas insists on forging a direct path, a straight line aimed at the mythical heart of this land, a testament to the unwavering will of a Spanish soldier. Your maps demand it, he says, our faith demands it. But the jungle does not believe in straight lines. It is a world of curves, twists, and impenetrable knots. And so, the men at the front of the column swing their machetes, their heavy blades singing a rhythmic, percussive tune of exhaustion. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It is the only music you have. Each swing severs a vine as thick as your arm or a curtain of broad, waxy leaves. For a moment, a sliver of path appears, a brown wound in the green flesh of the forest. But you know, with a wary certainty, that if you were to turn back tomorrow, the wound would already be healing, the jungle reclaiming the territory you paid for in sweat and blood. You are not clearing a path, you are merely borrowing a space for a few fleeting hours. The heat is a physical enemy. It's not the dry, baking heat of a Castilian summer, a heat you can escape in the shade of an olive grove. This is a wet, oppressive weight that saps your strength and clouds your mind. You feel it most acutely because of your clothes. You are still dressed as a European gentleman in woolen breeches and a linen shirt. The wool, designed for the cool dampness of Spain, becomes a torture device here. It traps every drop of sweat, turning your clothing into a heavy, sodden blanket that chafes your skin raw. Rashes bloom across your chest and in the crooks of your arms, itching with an intensity that nearly drives you mad. You see the common soldiers, clad in their leather jerkins and steel helmets, suffering even more. Their helmets bake their skulls, and the leather grows stiff and then slimy with mold, a second skin of decay. You now understand why the native people you glimpse wear so little. It is not savagery, it is wisdom. It is an adaptation you and your men are too proud or too foolish to make. As the body suffers, the mind begins to fray. The men mutter in the dark, their voices low and fearful. They speak of shadows that move with no source, of whispers that sound like their own language, but with no one there to speak them. They blame the food, the water, the air. But you know it is more than that. It is the overwhelming greenness. The canopy above that is so thick it turns midday into a perpetual twilight. It is the sounds. The alien shrieks of monkeys that sound like tormented souls. The incessant, deafening hum of insects that never ever stops. There is no true silence here. The jungle is a constant assault on the senses, and it is wearing away the sanity of the expedition one man at a time. Men fall ill with fevers that make their teeth chatter and their skin burn, their delirious cries adding a new, human horror to the nightly chorus. The surgeon does what he can, bleeding them with a rusty lancet, but it does nothing. They die, and you bury them in shallow graves that the jungle consumes in a matter of days. Their headstones are crosses made of lashed-together sticks, a futile Christian gesture in a pantheon of ancient, nameless gods. Through it all, Captain de Vargas seems to grow stronger, his resolve hardening in this crucible of misery. Where his men see a green hell, he sees a divine testing ground. Every mosquito bite is a penance, every fallen soldier a martyr for the faith. His nightly sermons, once stirring speeches of glory, have become the fiery, unhinged ramblings of a prophet. He stands on a fallen log, his face gaunt and his eyes shining with a feverish light, not of sickness, but of absolute conviction. God has led us to this purgatory to cleanse us, he bellows, his voice echoing unnaturally in the dense woods. He burns the weakness from our hearts so that we may be worthy. Do you feel the sting of the fly? That is God reminding you of your sinful flesh. Do you feel the ache in your back? That is God testing the strength of your spirit. The golden city is not a prize for the weak. It is a reward for the pure, and this jungle is our furnace. You listen to his words, and where you once felt inspiration, you now feel a chilling fear. His faith is no longer a compass, it is a fire. It does not guide him, it consumes him. He pushes the men harder, halving rations to encourage prayer, and ordering floggings for those who complain. You see him staring into the dark tangle of the forest, a strange smile on his lips, as if he is locked in a personal conversation with the wilderness, a conversation where both parties speak only the language of suffering. Your admiration, once so pure and bright, has begun to curdle into the kind of fear you might have for a mad dog. You respect its power, but you know it can turn on you without reason or warning. The turning point comes on a day like any other, a day of sweat and hacking and despair. The men at the front of the column stop. The rhythmic chopping ceases. A murmur of consternation ripples back through the line. You push your way forward, your surveyor's tools clanking at your belt, to see what has caused the delay. You find yourself at the edge of a wall, not of stone, but of wood and life. Before you is a grove of trees so colossal they seem to be holding up the sky. Their trunks are impossibly thick, wrapped in a tapestry of vines, moss, and orchids of 100 different colors. The air here feels different, cooler, calmer, and ancient. A profound silence emanates from the grove, a silence that swallows the jungle's usual noise. It feels sacred, your native guide, a young man named Jose whose village was pacified weeks ago, stands before the captain, his hands held out in a gesture of pleading. He speaks in his own tongue, his words then filtered through a translator, a captured native who knows a fractured version of Spanish. He says, "We cannot go this way, Captain." The translator stammers, his eyes wide with fear. "This is our place of spirits, the resting place of his ancestors." He says these trees are the grandfathers of the forest. To cut them is a great evil. He says the forest will not forgive it. De Vargas looks at the immense trees, not with awe, but with contempt. He sees not a marvel of creation, but a pagan idol, an obstacle of heresy standing in the way of God's work. He scoffs, a harsh, ugly sound in the hallowed quiet. "Spirits, grandfathers," he barks. "Fever, dreams of savages. Tell him his ancestors were damned souls who lived and died without the light of Christ. Their spirits are demons, and we are the exorcists." He turns to his lieutenant. "This wall of idolatry blocks our path. We will not go around, we will go through. It will take weeks to chop it down." He pauses, a glint of cruel inspiration in his eyes. "We will be faster. We will cleanse it with fire." A collective gasp goes through the men. Even they, hardened and brutalized as they are, seem to recognize the profanity of the act. Ozer falls to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he pleads, his words urgent and desperate, but the translator is too terrified to even speak them. You feel a sickness rise in your throat. This is not piety. This is blasphemy dressed in the robes of faith. "Captain," you hear yourself say, your voice sounding small and thin. "Surely there is another way. The effort, the time to burn this much green wood." De Vargas turns his burning gaze on you. "Mateo, my learned mapmaker, you of all people should understand. What is the most perfect shape? What is the symbol of reason, of God's own design upon the chaos?" He gestures to the maps tucked in their oilskin roll at your hip. "The straight line. Our path must be a straight line, an arrow of faith shot into the heart of this darkness. To deviate is to show weakness. To go around is to admit this pagan filth has power over us. We will not go around. We will purge it." His orders are given, and the men obey, their movements slow and reluctant. They gather dry tinder, piling it at the base of the great trees. It takes hours. All the while Ozer sits on the ground, rocking back and forth, a low, keening lament rising from his throat. You watch helpless, your stomach a cold knot of dread. This is not for progress. This is not for survival. This is an act of rage against a world that will not bend to one man's will. When the torches are finally lit and thrust into the pyres, the forest resists. The green wood, full of life and water, hisses and steams, refusing the flame. But de Vargas is patient. He orders more tinder, more dead wood, building the fires higher and higher until their heat is a tangible wall. And then, with a deep groan that sounds like a living thing in agony, one of the giants catches. The fire races up its bark, consuming the orchids and the moss, licking at the ancient leaves. Soon, its neighbor catches, and then the next, until the entire grove is a roaring inferno. The heat is immense, driving you all back. The noise is a deafening crackle and roar, punctuated by the screams of the thousands of creatures. Monkeys, birds, sloths, insects, that called the grove home. You watch in mute horror as centuries, perhaps millennia, of life are turned into a column of black, greasy smoke that blots out what little light penetrates the canopy. The sky turns a hellish orange. Ash, like black snow, falls all around you, coating your hair and clothes. The smell is one of utter destruction, an acrid stench of burned life that you know will never leave your memory. You look at your map case. Inside is your beautiful parchment, your work of art, your contribution to enlightenment. You had imagined it as a gift, a document that would bring this unknown world into the light of human understanding. And you realize with a sudden, soul-crushing clarity what it truly is. It's a weapon. Your precise, elegant lines, drawn with such intellectual pride, are not tools of discovery. They are warrants of execution. You have not been charting a landscape, you have been marking targets. That straight line you so admired, the one de Vargas spoke of with such religious fervor, is not a path of glory. It is a scar you are carving into the face of the world, a deep, infected wound of arrogance and ignorance. The tyranny of that straight line, so clean and simple on your parchment, is the most profound and destructive lie you have ever told. The acrid smell of burning history still clings to the inside of your nostrils, a phantom scent you carry with you on the river. You see it when you close your eyes, the great pyre of the ancient forest, a sacrifice not to God, but to the vanity of a single straight line on your map. That was the moment your admiration for Captain de Vargas finally curdled into something cold and heavy in your gut. Fear. Your life's work, the precise craft of cartography that you believed brought enlightenment, now feels like an accomplice to a profound desecration. Every stroke of your quill pen that charted a path for him feels like a scar you carved into the world's living skin. The straight, unwavering lines you so prided yourself on are a lie, a tyrant's decree against the wending, breathing truth of this land. Adrift on the brown water, surrounded by the oppressive green, your earlier zealous optimism has dissolved, leaving only a hollow ache of disillusionment. And then you hear it. A low rumble, not of thunder, but of the river itself, rising in anger. The sound grows from a murmur to a roar with terrifying speed. It is not the gentle lapping of water you have become used to, but a deep guttural growl that seems to emanate from the very bowels of the earth. Before your mind can fully process the danger, the river begins to boil. The brown water surges, climbing the banks in greedy waves, swallowing bushes and small trees in a single gulp. Your dugout canoe, once a stable vessel, is now a toy in a bathtub, tossed violently from side to side. The other men in the expedition's small flotilla shout, their voices thin and panicked, instantly ripped away by the rising wind and the percussive crash of water against wood. You grip the sides of your canoe, knuckles white, your cartographer's mind screaming at the impossibility of it. There was no rain, no storm. The sky above the canopy is a sliver of placid blue. This is not a weather event. This is the jungle unleashing a sudden, inexplicable fury. A wall of water, thick with mud and torn vegetation, rises up before you. A whole tree, roots and all, surfs its crest like some monstrous battering ram. There is no time to steer, no time to pray. The impact is a violent explosion of splintering wood and shocking, absolute cold. The world flips, green and brown and grey, spinning into a nose-eating vortex. Your lungs, desperate for air, get only a mouthful of gritty river water. You are underwater, tangled in what feels like ropes, your limbs flailing against the crushing pressure. Kicking wildly, you break the surface, gasping, only to be slammed back under by the force of the current. It has you now, a mindless beast dragging you through a gauntlet of submerged branches that tear at your clothes and skin. Something hard and immense, a rock, a log, collides with your side with a sickening crack. A hot, blinding flash of pain eclipses all thought, and the fight drains out of you. The roaring of the water fades, replaced by a strange, quiet humming in your ears. Your last conscious thought is not of Spain or glory or even God. It is the simple, damning realization that your beautiful maps, your perfect lines and meticulous measurements, meant nothing to the water. The jungle did not even know they existed, and then, only darkness. You drift in and out of a feverish dream. Time loses all meaning, becoming a cyclical torment of burning heat and shivering cold. You are vaguely aware of sensations, but they are disconnected, like echoes of another man's life. You feel the scratch of leaves against your face, the soft, yielding floor of the forest. You sense movement, the gentle, swaying rhythm of being carried. Sometimes, through the fog of pain, you see a face. It is a face carved from ancient wood, skin the color of rich earth, eyes as deep and dark as a moonless night. It is the silent observer you saw on the riverbank, the one whose presence felt like a quiet judgment. Kalen. His expression is unreadable, not of pity or curiosity, but of a profound, unnerving calm. His hands, when they touch you, are not rough, but surprisingly gentle as they adjust the crude sling that binds your wounded side. You try to speak, to form the Spanish words for thank you or who are you, but only a dry croak escapes your lips. The dream shifts. A new sound cuts through the haze, a constant, powerful thunder that vibrates through your entire body. It is the sound of 1,000 rivers falling from the sky. You feel a cool mist on your face, and then a strange sensation of passing through a solid curtain of water. The thunderous roar is suddenly muffled, softened into a constant, soothing hiss. You are laid down on something soft, a bed of woven fibers and fur that smells of smoke and herbs. Your eyes flicker open, struggling to focus. You are inside a dwelling, a round hut made of bent saplings and broad, overlapping leaves. Light filters through the woven walls in dappled patterns, dancing like spirits in the smoky air. The structure is simple, primitive to your European eyes, and yet you instinctively recognize its perfection. There are no rigid, square corners fighting the landscape. The hut is curved like a seed pod, settled into the earth as if it grew there. Your gaze falls upon the gash in your side. It is no longer bleeding freely. It has been cleaned, and a thick, dark green poultice is packed into the wound, held in place by a large, waxy leaf tied with vine. The pain is still a dull, throbbing bass note, but the sharp, stabbing agony has receded. Kalen is there kneeling beside you. He holds a shallow bowl carved from a gourd, filled with a clear, slightly sweet water. He lifts your head with one hand and brings the bowl to your lips. You drink, the cool liquid a balm to your parched throat. He does not speak. He never speaks. His communication exists in his actions, in the quiet efficiency of his care. He is not your savior, he is your caretaker, tending to you with the same dispassionate expertise he might afford a wounded tapir or a damaged plant. In your delirium, a terrifying thought surfaces to this man. You are just another piece of the forest, something broken that he has found, and is now patiently mending. The arrogance that fueled your journey across the ocean feels a universe away, a foolish costume you wore in another life. Here, stripped of your instruments, your rank, and your language, you are nothing more than a broken body, utterly dependent on the grace of a man you once would have dismissed as a savage. The days that follow are a slow, painful crawl back to consciousness. The fever holds you in its grip, a relentless furnace that threatens to bake your mind to dust. Kalen remains a constant presence. He forces you to drink bitter teas that make you sweat and foul-smelling broths that, despite their strangeness, begin to rebuild your strength. He changes the poultice on your wound daily. You watch him through half-lidded eyes as he grinds fresh leaves on a flat stone, mixing them with a sticky sap. Your rational mind, the part of you trained in the universities of Salamanca, screams that this is witchcraft. a pagan ritual that will surely lead to infection and death. Spanish physicians would have bled you, purging the bad humors, a treatment you now realize would have certainly killed you from weakness. Yet day by day the fire in your side recedes. The angry red flush around the wound softens. New, healthy skin begins to knit together. This man, with his leaves and his silence, possesses a knowledge of healing that makes the royal doctors of Spain look like fumbling butchers. The realization is a bitter pill to swallow, another brick crumbling from the foundation of your civilized certainty. When the fever finally breaks, it feels like emerging from a tomb. You wake one morning and the world is sharp and clear again. The pain is a dull achy, not a roar. You are able to sit up, muscles trembling from dessous. You look at your hands, the soft, pale hands of a scholar, stained with ink, and feel a wave of complete and utter worthlessness. What use is your knowledge of Latin and geometry here? What good are your carefully calculated projections of the globe in a world that exists in a single, overwhelming, vertical green mile? Outside the hut, you hear the sounds of the village for the first time with clarity. It is not a place of noise and chaos, but of quiet, purposeful activity. The murmur of voices in a language that sounds more like birdsong than human speech, the rhythmic thud of a pestle in a mortar, the laughter of a child. Kylan enters and, seeing you awake and lucid, gives a slow, single nod. He hands you a piece of roasted fish wrapped in a leaf. The taste is smoky and clean, the most delicious thing you have ever eaten. You devour it like a starved animal. For the first time you are truly hungry, and that hunger feels like a return to life. Over the next few weeks, you become a silent observer, a ghost in this village hidden behind a waterfall. You learn that it is a community of perhaps 50 souls. You watch the women tend to small garden plots, growing strange tubers and broad, leafed greens. You watch the men fashion arrowheads from sharpened bone and fishhooks from thorns. There is no urgency in their work, no frantic toil driven by a looming deadline or a demanding master. There is only a steady, patient rhythm, a life lived in perfect synchronicity with the rising and setting of the sun and the flow of the river. Your education begins when you can finally walk without a limp. Kalen leads you from the village, back through the curtain of the waterfall and into the jungle. He carries no instruments, no compass, no parchment. His map is in his mind, his tools are his senses. He takes you to the river, the very same one that nearly claimed your life. He doesn't speak. He simply points. He points to the way the water riffles over a submerged sandbar, a subtle texture on the surface invisible to your untrained eye. He traces the V-shaped wake left by a swimming snake. He crumbles a piece of damp earth from the bank in his fingers, showing you the fresh tracks of a capybara. He is teaching you to read. Your whole life has been dedicated to reading, to deciphering texts, to interpreting charts and diagrams. But this is a different kind of literacy. This is a language written in water, earth, and shadow. Your straight line sought to conquer the river, to define its edges and declare its direction. Kalen's knowledge allows him to become part of its flow, to understand its moods and secrets without needing to cage it on a page. Next, he teaches you the language of leaves. He will stop, pluck a leaf from a towering tree, and hand it to you. He crushes one in his hand and holds it for you to smell its sharp, medicinal scent, the very plant he used to heal your wound. He points to another, a vine with heart-shaped leaves, and makes a chewing motion, then pats his stomach, indicating food or energy. Then he points to a third, a beautiful plant with vibrant, alluring berries. He shakes his head firmly, drawing a finger across his own throat. Poison? You, Mateo de la Vega, who can name every constellation in the northern sky and recite Ovid in the original Latin, cannot tell the difference between a leaf that will save your life and one that will kill you. A humbling, terrifying thought. This entire forest, which to you was a monotonous, hostile wall of green, is in fact a library. It is a storehouse of food, medicine, and tools. Every plant has a name, a purpose, a story, a knowledge passed down not in books, but from hand to hand, generation to generation. The most profound lesson, however, is written in stone. One day, Kaelin leads you deeper into the jungle than you have ever been, to a place where the canopy is so thick that the air is cool and dim, like the inside of a great cathedral. He brings you to a clearing filled with enormous moss-covered boulders. And on them, you see the carvings. They are not the crude scratchings of a primitive people. They are intricate, elegant patterns, spirals and lines and figures, weathered by centuries of rain and sun. Your cartographer's instinct kicks in. You see them as symbols, a code to be broken. Kaelin seems to understand. He traces one of the carvings with his finger. It is a stylized depiction of a jaguar. Then, he points up through a small break in the canopy, towards the sky. He doesn't need words. You follow his gesture and your breath catches in your throat. You see a familiar pattern of stars, a constellation that, from this part of the world, looks unmistakably like a great, stalking cat. You look back at the rock, your mind racing. He traces another symbol, a long, wending serpent. He then turns and points in the direction of the great river. The river. He puts his hand on a series of small, wave-like carvings next to the serpent and then holds up 6 fingers. 6 moons. The 6th month. Does it mean the river will flood? You look around at the other carvings. You see patterns that mimic the flight of birds, the life cycle of insects, the phases of the moon. This is not mere art. This is science. This is astronomy, meteorology, history. It is a map of time and space, of immense complexity and wisdom, written into the very fabric of the world. It is a map so far beyond your own limited craft that it makes your vellum and ink feel like a child's clumsy scrawl. In that moment, standing in the green twilight of the ancient forest, the last vestiges of your old self crumble away. The arrogance of your civilization, the belief that your science and your faith were bringing light to a dark world, is exposed for the profound and staggering vanity it truly is. You and your captain, with your steel and your gunpowder and your unwavering belief in your own superiority, were the blind ones. You came to chart the wilderness, but you were the ones who were truly lost. You look at Kaelin, at this silent man who speaks the language of the rocks and the water, and you see not a savage, but a scholar of a discipline you never knew existed. Your journey's purpose was to impose order on a chaotic world. But you now understand that the order was here all along, a deep and intricate wisdom you were simply too ignorant to see. Disillusionment has given way to a quiet, crystalline awakening. You are no longer Mateo de la Vega, royal cartographer for the Spanish crown. You are a student, and your lesson has only just begun. The peace of Kaelin's hidden world, a life lived to the rhythm of the waterfall and the silent language of the trees, is now a memory that feels as distant as Spain. That awakening, that stripping away of your arrogance, has been replaced by a familiar weight you thought you had shed responsibility. You stand at the edge of the jungle, the mist from the falls clinging to your skin, torn between the profound calm you found and the gnawing duty to the men you abandoned. They are still out there, lost in this green labyrinth, chasing a phantom of gold and glory, and you, their cartographer, helped draw the map that led them to their doom. Kaelin's farewell was not one of words, but of a simple, knowing touch to your chest, a gesture that felt both like a blessing and a warning. And so, with a heart heavy with this conflict, you turn your back on sanctuary and step back into the world you once sought to conquer. This time not as a map maker, but as a witness. The jungle greets you not as a stranger, but as a familiar beast whose habits you have begun to learn. Before, you saw only a wall of indiscriminate green. Now your eyes pick out the patterns Kaelin taught you to see. You recognize the broad, waxy leaves of the banana plant, a source of sustenance your comrades would have ignored. You spot the tail shimmer of a poison dart frog on a damp log, a jewel of death you once would have found merely exotic. You are moving through the same world, but you are not the same man. Your fine leather boots, a point of pride in Seville, are long gone, rotted away by the perpetual damp. You move now in sandals woven from palm fronds, your feet caroused and knowing, feeling the sucking mud and the gnarled roots as extensions of your own senses. Your mission is simple and grim, to find the trail of the expedition. and you find it not by following a neatly cleared path, but by tracking the path of its decay. The first sign is a discarded breastplate, lying half sunk in a pool of black, stagnant water. You pull it out, the steel warm and slick with algae. You remember the armorer polishing this very piece on the deck of the flagship, the sun glinting off its proud, curved surface. Now, rust blossoms in angry orange patches where the damp has eaten through the metal. You feel its weight in your hands and wonder at the foolishness of it all. To carry such a burden, to wear a portable oven in this suffocating heat, was an act of pure, unthinking arrogance. A man wearing this would sweat out his life's water in a matter of hours, his own armor becoming a more immediate threat than any native spear. It was a symbol of Spanish power, utterly useless against the true enemies here: the heat, the moisture, and the crushing exhaustion. You let it drop back into the water with a soft gulp, another piece of your old world swallowed by the new. You push onward, the air growing thicker, more oppressive with every step. The humidity is a physical presence, a wet blanket you can't throw off. Your clothes, simple cotton given to you by the tribe, are perpetually soaked, clinging to your skin and chafing it raw. You understand now why the native peoples wear so little. It is not a sign of savagery, but of profound common sense. Every inch of exposed skin is a torment, however. The air is alive with a whining orchestra of insects. Mosquitoes, so small and fragile, are the true conquerors of this land. They rise in clouds from every puddle, their bite not just an irritation, but a potential death sentence. You feel the constant pricks and itches, and your mind, now armed with a sliver of Kalen's wisdom, registers them with a new kind of fear. You think of the men from the expedition, their pale, unbitten European skin a feast for these creatures. You remember their fevers, the way they would shiver uncontrollably in the sweltering heat. The yellow jack, the shaking sickness. They called it a curse from God, a test of faith. You now know it was simply biology, a microscopic war being waged in their blood, a war their bodies were completely unprepared to fight. Days blur into a monotonous cycle of walking, sweating, and listening. Your diet consists of grubs dug from rotting logs, fruits you can now identify as safe, and the occasional fish you manage to spear in a shallow creek. Your stomach, accustomed to Spanish bread, wine, and salted pork, has long since surrendered. You feel a constant, gnawing hunger, a hollowness that sharpens your senses. It is the hunger of survival, not of appetite. This is another lesson the jungle teaches: food is not for pleasure. It is fuel, and it is brutally hard to acquire. You pass trees that your men would have seen as mere wood. But you now see the faint scratches on their bark, signs that Kalen's people have harvested medicinal sap from them. You see how they move through the forest with a light footprint, taking only what they need, leaving the rest to flourish. Then you see the expedition's mark, and it feels like a wound in the flesh of the world. It is a line of trees, not felled with the clean cut of an axe, but blackened and burned, their charred limbs reaching to the sky like skeletal fingers. This is the path de Vargas ordered cleared, the scar you watched him carve into the sacred forest. The memory makes you sick to your stomach. You walk through the corridor of ash, and the ground is silent. There are no insects buzzing, no birds calling. It is a dead space. Here the arrogance of the straight line, the cartographer's creed, is laid bare. De Vargas believed he was imposing order on chaos, but he only created a vacuum, a place of profound and unnatural emptiness. On the edge of this burn, you find the next sign: a rosary, its wooden beads bleached by the sun, tangled in the roots of a scorched tree. It was dropped, you realize, not by a man marching to glory, but by one stumbling in exhausted despair. Your thoughts of faith and futility are shattered by a sound that does not belong here. It is faint at first, carried on the humid breeze. A low, rhythmic chanting. It's not the song of the tribe you left, nor the calls of any jungle creature. It is a European sound, twisted and broken. It is the sound of a Latin prayer, repeated over and over by a hoarse, cracked voice. A litany of madness. You follow the sound, your heart pounding a rhythm of dread against your ribs. The undergrowth thins, and you creep forward, peering through a screen of massive, waxy leaves. Before you lies a clearing, and your mind struggles to process the scene. At the far side of the clearing looms a structure that defies reason. It is not a building, but a carved mountain, a pyramid of grey stone so colossal it seems to push the sky away. It rises in great stepped tiers, each one wider than a Spanish cathedral, disappearing into the canopy. But it is not a clean, sharp ruin. It is alive. Millennia of jungle life have claimed it. Thick, muscular vines, some as wide as your body, cling to its stones like serpents. A cascade of green moss covers everything, softening its edges, making it look as if the jungle itself has erupted from the earth in this geometric form. Water trickles down its face, glistening in the shafts of light that pierce the canopy. It is a city of silence, a monument to a civilization that understood its place in this world, and it makes the grandest cathedrals of Spain feel like the toys of children. At the base of this silent giant sits the pathetic remnant of your expedition. There are perhaps a dozen men left. But they are not men. They are specters, skeletal figures draped in the rotting remains of their uniforms. Some lie on the ground shivering with fever. Others sit staring into space, their eyes vacant and unseeing. One man is on his knees, weeping softly, digging at the dirt with his bare, bloody fingers, searching for the gold that was promised. The air is thick with the sweet, foul stench of sickness and decay. This is not an encampment of explorers. It is a leper colony at the end of the world. And then you see him, seated on a large, moss-covered block of stone that has fallen from the pyramid, as if upon a throne, is Captain de Vargas. The man of iron is gone. His magnificent beard, once a symbol of his authority, is now a tangled, filthy mat. Vines have been woven into his hair like a crown of thorns. His uniform is in tatters, and draped over his shoulders is a cloak of leaves and moss, a grotesque parody of a royal mantle. He holds a broken branch like a scepter. He is not looking at his dying men. He stares transfixed at the silent, stone face of the pyramid. He is the source of the chanting. Me culpa, mea maxima culpa. He rasps, his voice a dry whisper. He repeats the phrase again and again, a broken record of penitence. You take a single step out from the cover of the leaves, and the snap of a twig under your foot sounds like a cannon shot in the unnatural quiet. Every head that can lift turns towards you. But it is de Vargas's gaze that locks onto yours. His eyes, sunken deep into his skull and burning with feverish intensity, widen. But there is no recognition in them. There is only a primal, superstitious terror. A spirit, he breathes, his voice cracking. He struggles to his feet, swaying, using the branch scepter to steady himself. A ghost of the green hell, sent to witness my ascension. You open your mouth to speak, to say your name. Captain, it is I, Mateo. Your voice seems to shatter his delusion for a moment. His eyes focus, a flicker of the old de Vargas buried deep within. Mateo? The map maker? He squints, then a terrible, broken smile spreads across his face. It is a rictus of madness. Of course you are here. The hand that drew the line must witness where it ends. You have come to see my kingdom. He gestures with his branch to the squalor around him, to the dying men and the oppressive jungle. Behold, he cries, his voice a pathetic imitation of the booming commander you once knew. El Dorado! I have found it! Not a city of gold, you see. That was a test for weaker men. No, this is a city of truth. A city of God's perfect, silent judgment. You take another step forward, your hands raised in a calming gesture. And I go, you say, using his given name for the first time. There is nothing here but sickness. Let me help you. There is a village. He scoffs, a dribble of saliva running from the corner of his mouth. I have a kingdom. I am the king of this great silence. The king of nothing at the heart of everything. He begins to laugh, a dry, rattling sound that turns into a hacking cough. He doubles over, spitting a dark fluid onto the ground. You see it now, the full depth of his madness. He did not find El Dorado, he created it in his mind, a fiction to shield himself from the monumental truth of his failure. All his faith, his piety, his unbending will. It all shattered against the unyielding indifference of this place. And this ruin, this Il Dorado, is the story he tells himself to make sense of the pieces. You betrayed us, cartographer? He snarls, his mood shifting in an instant. The feverish glint in his eye sharpens into something akin to hatred. You and your pagan learning. You communed with the demons of this forest. You are an emissary of this green heresy. You have come to judge me. He sees you not as a survivor, but as a hallucination, a physical manifestation of his own guilt. Your map, his faith, your shared quest for enlightenment. It has all curdled into this final insane confrontation. He is Adam, and you are the serpent in his ruined Eden. There is no judgment here, Captain. You say, your voice soft with a pity so profound it aches in your chest. Only tragedy. The word seems to enrage him. Tragedy? No! This is triumph! My soul has been scored clean! I have seen the face of God in the endless green. He raises his branch scepter, pointing it at you, his hand trembling violently. You will not unmake my kingdom, ghost! He takes a clumsy step toward you, intending to strike you down, to banish the specter of his own failure. But his body, ravaged by starvation and disease, betrays him. His legs, thin as sticks, buckle beneath him. He doesn't lunge, he stumbles. His arms flail for balance, and he pivots backward, a graceless, pitiful motion. His stumble carries him 2-3 steps back, right to the foot of the Great Pyramid. Behind him, shrouded in shadow and veiled by hanging vines, is a dark opening in the stone. A doorway, a tomb entrance, a mouth. It is the ruin's dark maw. He falls backward into it. There is no scream. There is no sound of a body hitting stone. He simply vanishes into the absolute blackness. One moment, the king of nothing is there, a raging specter in the dim light. The next, he is gone. Swallowed. Consumed by the very mystery he sought to conquer. The jungle falls utterly silent. The low moans of the dying men cease, as if the captain's final act has stunned them into a stupor. Even the insects seem to hold their breath. The only sound is the steady, indifferent drip, drip, drip of water trickling down the ancient stones of the pyramid. You stand there, a solitary figure in the clearing. The last sane man at the heart of a failed conquest. The survivors do not even look at you. They are lost, their gazes fixed on the crumbling city or on the phantoms within their own minds. You are alone with the colossal ruin and a sense of tragedy so vast it feels like a physical part of the landscape. The straight lines on your parchment led here, to this place of ruin and silence, where a mad king was consumed by his own empty kingdom. And as you stare into the dark doorway that took him, you finally understand the jungle's most profound lesson. It does not conquer, and it cannot be conquered. It simply endures. And when you are loud, it waits for you to fall silent. The silence of that place is the ghost that followed you across the ocean. Years cannot mute it, and the stone walls of Salamanca cannot contain it. You still see him, Hernando el Hierro de Vargas, not as the captain of righteous fury, but as a broken king draped in vines, his eyes wild with a fever that no physician could name. You see him take that final, stumbling step into the dark maw of the forgotten city, a man consumed not by savages or sickness, but by the sheer, annihilating weight of a world that refused to be conquered. The profound tragedy of it all settled upon you then, a quiet shroud that fell with the jungle's sudden hush. That oppressive green humidity has long since left your lungs, replaced now by the dry, cool air of old Castile, and the ceaseless, chaotic symphony of the rainforest has been traded for the solemn, predictable tolling of a university bell. You are a different man in a different world, an echo of the cartographer who set out for glory, living a life built upon the ruins of his own ambition. You are old now. You feel it less in the silver of your hair and the deep lines etched around your eyes, and more in the persistent, knowing ache in your bones. A damp cold that the Spanish sun can no longer seem to reach. It's a souvenir from the jungle, a permanent memory of sleeping on wet ground and shivering through tropical nights. Here, in your lecture hall at the great University of Salamanca, the cold is different. It is the ancient cold of stone, of vaulted ceilings, so high that your voice seems to stretch and thin before it reaches the back row. Sunlight, thick with the dust of centuries, pours through the high-arched windows, illuminating the rapt faces of your students. They are the sons of Spanish nobility, dressed in fine wool and dark velvet, their hands soft, their minds sharp and hungry for the knowledge you possess. They see you as a legend. Not Mateo de la Vega, cartographer to the king, the man who was meant to chart the arteries of the new world. That man died somewhere in the floodwaters of a nameless river. They see Professor de la Vega, the university's most peculiar and revered scholar of the new sciences of botany and ethnography. You speak to them not of conquest, but of life. The daily ritual is the same. You stand at the heavy oak lectern, your wrinkled hands resting on its surface. These are the same hands that once held an astrolabe with unwavering precision, that drew impossibly straight lines across pristine parchment. Now, they gesture to illustrate the healing properties of a particular jungle vine or the intricate societal structure of a people who have no need for written laws. The career vine, you say, your voice a dry rustle in the cavernous room, is a paradox crafted by God. In the hands of a hunter, its extract can stop a man's heart in an instant. Yet, prepared with the wisdom of the curandero, the healer, a minuscule dose can calm a shaking fever. You watch their quills scratching furiously across their notebooks. They are capturing the facts, the data. They are pinning the knowledge down, just as you once tried to pin down the world with longitude and latitude. You look at their eager, arrogant faces, and you see yourself aboard de Vargas's flagship, your heart swelling with the pride of purpose, convinced that your science was a holy act of bringing light to darkness. The irony of your position is a constant, quiet companion. Your fame, your comfortable post, this entire second life. It was all built not on your success, but on your abject failure. You were celebrated only after your maps were proven to be lies, your instruments useless, your entire worldview shattered into 1,000 pieces and washed away by the indifferent current of the river. Your stomach rumbles, a faint and distant thing. It reminds you of a different kind of hunger, a gnawing, desperate emptiness you knew for weeks after being separated from the expedition. A hunger so profound, it made you see the jungle not as a landscape, but as a pantry. You remember Kylan pointing to a grub, fat and white, and eating it with a calm satisfaction. You remember your own revulsion, then the desperate hunger that overrode it, and finally, the surprisingly nutty taste of the protein that kept you alive. Your diet now is one of a respected scholar: soft bread, salted fish, wine from the hills of La Rioja. It is civilized, it is bland. It lacks the sharp, vibrant taste of survival. Speaking of civilization, you notice the way your students sit. Their backs are straight, their movements constrained by their formal attire. The high, stiff collars and heavy fabrics are designed to project status and separate them from the world of physical labor. You remember the freedom of the simple loincloth you wore in Kalen's village. The feeling of the warm air and cool water on your skin. Here in this tomb of knowledge, comfort is sacrificed for propriety. That is the way of your world. You spend your life encased in layers of wool, of stone, of doctrine, believing it offers protection, when in truth it only deadens the senses. A hand shoots up in the front row. It is young Nenines, the son of a duke. His mind is sharp and narrow as a stiletto. "Professor," he asks, his voice ringing with the unearned confidence of youth. You speak of their remedies and their customs. But are these people not savages? Without a king, without the Holy Church to guide them, are they not simply lost? The question hangs in the dusty air. A lifetime ago, you would have answered with an emphatic eyes. You would have spoken of the sacred duty to bring them God, to give them order, to save them from themselves. But now, the word savage tastes like ash in your mouth. Your mind drifts from the cold stones of Salamanca. The lecture hall dissolves, and you are once again sitting by a fire in Kalen's village, a place hidden behind a curtain of falling water, so perfectly integrated into the landscape that your expedition had passed within a mile of it, and seen nothing. You see Kalen's face. You never learned a single word of his spoken language, nor he of yours. His teachings were a silent masterclass in observation. You see him now in your mind's eye, not speaking, but holding up a single leaf. He crumbles part of it, rubs it on an insect bite on your arm, and the itching stops. He points to the sky, not at the sun, but at the specific V formation of migrating birds, and you understand that the rains are coming. He would take you to a wall of ancient, moss-covered stone deep in the forest, and with his finger trace the carvings. They were not words but stories. A swirling spiral was the great river. A jagged line was the jaguar. A circle with a dot was the tribe. It was a map. You realized with a jolt that shook your soul, a map far more profound and true than any you could ever create with ink and dividers. It was a map of relationships, of connections, of life's sacred flow. You remember the order of his people. There was no edict for sharing food, it was simply done. There was no sermon on respecting the forest. It was understood that to poison the river was to poison yourself. Their laws were not written on scrolls, but were woven into the fabric of their existence. You contrast that quiet, resilient harmony with the order of Spain. The brutal order of the Inquisition, the violent order of conquest, the rigid order of a class system where men like Nunez were born to rule and others were born to serve. De Vargas believed he was bringing God's own order to the jungle, but he only brought the chaos of the sword and the fire. The straight, unwavering line he forced through the forest was an act of profound tyranny against a world that thrived on curves, cycles, and interconnectedness. You are brought back to the present by the expectant silence of the room. All eyes are on you. Young Nunez is waiting for his answer. You clear your throat, the sound unnaturally loud. Lost. You finally say, your gaze sweeping over the young, privileged faces. A man is only lost when he does not know his place in the world. They knew their place. It is we, gentlemen, who sail thousands of miles to a land that is not ours, who burn what we do not understand, and who call a people savage, because their gods do not look like ours. I ask you who is truly lost. A murmur ripples through the hall. You have not given them an answer. You have given them a puzzle, and it unsettles them. You can see it in their shifting postures and narrowed eyes. You have transgressed, questioned the very foundation of their worldview, the divine right of their civilization to impose itself upon all others. You dismiss the class, and the students file out, whispering amongst themselves, leaving you alone in the vast, silent room. The quiet that remains is a poor imitation of the jungle's silence. That silence was alive, breathing, filled with the weight of millennia. This is just an absence of noise. You retreat to your private study, your sanctuary. The room is not the workshop of a cartographer. There are no charts on the walls, no gleaming brass instruments on the tables. Instead, the space is a museum of your transformation. Shelves are filled with books, yes, but they sit beside clay pots, intricately woven baskets, and polished river stones that Kalen gave you. Your illustrations line the walls. Not coastlines and mountain ranges, but detailed, life-size drawings of orchids, of the iridescent blue morpho butterfly, of the face of an old man whose wisdom could not be measured or mapped. The air is thick with the scent of dried herbs, old paper, and beeswax, a fragrance of memory itself. This is your quiet life now, a life of reflection, of trying to translate an unwritten language for a world that only values the written word. It is a peaceful life, a penance of sorts. But peace is a fragile thing. A sharp knock comes at your heavy oak door. Before you can answer, it swings open, and a young man strides in. He is all sharp angles and restless energy, his eyes burning with an intensity you know all too well. It is the fire of ambition. In his hands, he carries a large, rolled-up cylinder of vellum. Professor de la Vega. He says, his voice breathy with reverence. He is practically vibrating with excitement. Forgive my intrusion. I am Toms de Silva. I have studied all of your early work. The precision, the artistry, you are the reason I chose this path. He is the ghost of your past. You look at him and feel a wave of profound pity wash over you. He sees you as a master of a craft you have come to despise. My early work was the work of a fool. You say, your voice quieter than you intend. He laughs, thinking you are being modest. A master's humility, he says, stepping forward. But it is because of the foundations you laid that we have been able to create this. With a flourish, he unrolls the vellum across your large work table. It is a magnificent map, a true work of art commissioned by the king himself. The coastlines of the New World are rendered in exquisite detail. The sea is a brilliant aquamarine, filled with artistic sea monsters, and the calligraphy is flawless. You run a finger over its surface. It feels smooth, cold, sterile. It is a beautiful and intricate lie. Because you know that the firm, solid coastline he has drawn breeze with the tide, that the empty, looking plains are teeming with life he cannot conceive of, and that the elegant mountain ranges are living beings that can weep with rock slides and floods. A masterpiece of the craft, seed or de Silva. You manage to say. His chest swells with pride. Why have incorporated all the latest reports from returning captains, referencing their logs, their celestial readings. It is the most accurate representation of the continent ever created. He traces the known river systems with a proud finger. All of this, opened to us by men like Captain de Vargas. The name hangs in the air between you like a poison. You say nothing, your face a granite mask. De Silva, oblivious, barrels on with the intoxicating momentum of his purpose. He sees discovery, glory, progress. You see a trail of ghosts, of broken men and desecrated lands. Then his finger slides to the very center of the map, to the vast green heart of the continent. It is a perfect, featureless blank. The parchment there is pristine, untouched by ink, a void, an emptiness waiting to be filled. Here, of course, he says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, full of youthful zeal, is the great mystery, the unmapped heart, the last great blank space on God's earth. We still know nothing of this land. He looks up from the map, his eyes shining, meeting yours. He asks the question you have been dreading for 30 years, the question that represents everything you have fought to forget, and everything you have struggled to honor. What lies there, Professor? The question is a key, turning a lock deep within you. The study, with its comforting scent of herbs and old paper, dissolves around you. The young man's face fades. You are looking into the blank space on the map, but you are not seeing a void. You see everything. You see a canopy of trees so dense and so high that it creates its own world of perpetual twilight, a world of greens and browns that your European eyes had no names for. You see the flash of a jaguar, a fluid shadow of muscle and death, and you feel the primal fear that strips a man of all his civilized pretensions. You smell the cloying sweetness of a blooming night flower and the rich, damp rot of a dozen centuries of fallen leaves turning back into soil. You hear it. The deafening, overwhelming orchestra of life, the chittering of monkeys, the guttural roar of a howler, the ceaseless thrum of a billion insects, all of it underscored by the gentle, constant whisper of running water. You see Kylan's hands, not pointing at the map, but sifting through the dark earth, reading the future in a handful of soil. You see the faces of his tribe, looking at you not with fear or hate, but with a deep, unnerving curiosity, as if you were a strange, pale ghost who had wandered out of a bad dream. And you see the others. You see de Vargas, shrieking scripture at the unblinking green walls of the jungle, his faith curdled into a weapon of self-destruction. You see his men, your comrades, their bodies wasting away from fever, their minds unraveling, whispering of a city of gold as they stared, hollow-eyed, at the colossal, vine-choked pyramid that was their tombstone. That blank space on the map is not empty. It is full. It is full of a life too complex for lines, a history too ancient for words, a wisdom too subtle for conquerors. It is full of ghosts. Your hand, the old, wrinkled hand of a scholar, a survivor, begins to tremble. Slowly, deliberately, you lift it from your side. Thomas de Silva watches, his breath held, expecting you to point, to offer a clue, to give him the coordinates for his next glorious adventure. But you do not point. You do not speak of what you saw. To describe it would be to diminish it, to trap it in the clumsy cage of language. Instead, you reach across the table, across the beautiful, arrogant lie of the map, and you place your palm flat against the parchment, covering the entire blank space. Your hand, a thing of warm skin and bone and memory, covers the void. A small, simple act of protection. A final silent stand against the tyranny of the line. You look up from the map and meet the young cartographer's eager, questioning gaze. Your voice, when it comes, is not the voice of a professor. It is a whisper, an echo of the green silence that has lived inside you for decades. What should lie there? You say the words a conclusion, a prayer, and a final, hard, one truth. Peace.